Okay, this is the intro for the podcast.
Just a little sip first. My Diet Coke, a girl's best friend.
Hell yeah.
The government engineered Diet Coke to keep people happy. Anyway, welcome back to the Silver Screen Fiends podcast. I'm your host, Sam.
And I'm Blake.
I'm Anthony, but I'm not a host. I'm a guest.
No, but he is a returning guest. Every year we do a little thing called a Noirvember wrap-up show. Maybe you've heard of it? It's a little indie thing. You wouldn't get it. But anyway, we're a little late. Sorry. I blame myself for that one. But
No, it's not your fault. November just completely fucking vanished.
Well, November legit did not exist. It's I feel like we went from November 3rd to November 24th to now, like in the blink of an eye.
Yeah. That has to be the fastest month of the year for me, at least.
Yes.
Good Lord, it went by quickly.
So anyway, but that's not stopping us because we do be loving noir. So we're gonna still talk. We're still gonna talk about it. You know how this goes. We each chose a movie, and we'll discuss it. Not too much housekeeping though. Although Kirstie Alley passed away, that was sad. And I finally watched X. That's all my housekeeping. Kirstie Alley died, and I watched X.
What'd you think?
What I think, it was pretty fucking wild. I think that's like, I'm glad, like after I watched Barbarian, I was saying that's the direction I want these movies to continue going. Like I also felt like that movie could have been made in any era and it would have been good. You know, like even like if it was shot in the 70s, I think it still would have been good too. Yeah, it was solid. Yeah, I liked it.
I still gotta see Pearl.
Yeah, I still have to watch Pearl. Yeah,
I haven't seen it yet.
And it's funny. I was watching it with my friend Brian, and he put on the trailer for Pearl, and I was looking at the release day. I'm like, how'd they come out so close to each other? And then I realized like they basically reused like the same set and everything. So it's just easier.
I think it was something like they had like extra time or something on their like shooting schedule, and they were like, "You want to just film the prequel now?" And they're like, "All right." It was something weird like that where they like just happened to have time, and they just were like, "All right, let's just film it now."
Yeah.
So they filmed it back to back.
Yeah,
okay, do it live.
Exactly. But it was solid. I really enjoyed it. And Pearl, you're next, Pearl. Next. All right. Now we're just gonna get into it. You know, I don't want to keep y'all waiting. Which movie first though? Who wants to go first? Share with the class.
Let's start with Thief, since that's the one that's freshest in my mind.
Oh, The Thief. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So this is Blake's choice, and Anthony and I were not aware that this film had zero spoken dialogue, which was interesting. Yeah. Very interesting.
Yeah. It's a very weird movie. I literally chose it pretty much randomly, just off like a list I was looking at, and I liked the name. And then as I looked into it more and saw that it didn't have any dialogue, I was really interested in it. So I'm glad that I chose it.
Yeah, I knew that Ray Milland starred in a movie called Thief. I just didn't know he didn't speak in it. But honestly, looking back on it, I think someone like Ray Milland was a good choice because, I mean, it takes a lot to, I know Anthony has his own thoughts, but it takes a lot to be able to carry a film by literally saying nothing. And I think that the way he used his body language, it was almost, it was kind of like a commanding progression he held with it. But yeah, it was.
Yeah, I saw an interview. I read like a piece of an interview where he said that he considers that like his hardest or most difficult role because there's no dialogue.
Yeah, no, I understand because like there's so much you have to convey without saying anything. And although I will admit the only downside to the format really is at times it was difficult to follow the plot. Like Anthony and I did not realize till pretty far into the movie that this was he's a physicist who also was working as a spy, and like I wasn't really sure like where he was pledging his allegiance.
It could have used like a opening like text crawl or something just to like set it up, because it's difficult to like convey that with no dialogue.
Yeah, and I'll say like I guess the reason it was probably more forgivable in that sense is because it like a film noir traditionally layers its plot points, you know, and a lot of that is in an attempt to misdirect, but you know, remaining cohesive is important. So yeah, I agree. Like there probably should have been a text crawl or like something. A little something. Yeah, because I was like, what?
Yeah, any kind of setup would have been like appreciated. Yeah, it's a word. any kind of text would have been appreciated from me, because I'll admit it. I got like 10, 12 minutes of the movie, and I'm like, I don't know what the fuck is going on. So I Googled it, and I was like, oh.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I was able to like pick up pieces of what was happening. But like in the beginning, right? He's using a camera to take these pictures, and I'm just like, what is he doing? I was like, he's obviously gathering intelligence, but like for what? Like I thought maybe it was a personal matter that was interspersed with his business, you know, like because they didn't really explain that. But
yeah, it's kind of interesting too for a noir film. Like it's really more like spy thriller kind of like it's not really a classic detective story or anything like that. It's almost like a espionage story.
You know, Blake, I'm happy you said that, because I was sitting there watching this movie and I'm like, this isn't a noir. Like it felt like it had noir aspects.
Yeah.
But the thing, the je ne sais quoi that makes a noir, this movie was lacking severely, at least in my opinion. Mm-hmm. I have so many thoughts about this movie, and none of them are good. So I'm going to let you guys gush and say what you want to say about this movie. But I'm gonna I'll kind of rip into it in a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say I loved it necessarily. There was elements I liked about it, or that I thought was interesting. But yeah, I think the story is a little bit confusing, and like they clearly the no dialogue was like a gimmick they were going for, and I think that there were times where it was like maybe a little dialogue.
Yeah, perhaps a crumb.
Yeah.
Like I thought like for sure when he was transcribing that telegram to send back to them, I thought like he would have said something there.
Yeah. And it by not having the dialogue, it makes it a lot like weirder and almost more surreal. Like I liked it almost felt like a David Lynch movie or something, when he picks up the phone and he's just hearing like these like beeping and stuff. I thought that was pretty interesting, even if it, you know, was a little bit difficult to figure out what the hell it meant.
Yeah, that's exactly. You know, I will say that interesting you bring up the noir thing. Yeah, Noirvember, right? But the fact that like Notorious is another movie we chose, that's also kind of like more of a spy thriller. And I think that noir became such like a blanket term, where there's some films that actually, like in this movie, I think they borrow more from German expressionism, with the way they cut corners sometimes, and the lighting kind of teeters between that and noir. Like the shot where he's in the motel, like when shit starts to hit the fan and the FBI's like, you gotta stay in a motel. The lighting that flickers on and off, like I was like, oh, that's fucking noir. Like that's So yeah, like there's definitely elements of it, but
yeah. Well, it's funny how it like everywhere that you look, it is described as film noir, and it's like when you're watching it, you're kind of questioning that. Like even like Wikipedia says like film, like a noir crime film, and it's like it's really not a noir crime film. Or like IMDb has it listed as noir, and it's like it's classified all over the place as noir. But then you watch it and you're like, is it?
That's kind of how I feel about Strangers on a Train. When I was taking a film noir class in college, that was on the list of movies we could do a paper on, and we watched it. And me and this other guy I was friends with, we watched it, and we both kind of like looked at each other afterwards, and we were like, "That movie was great. It's not noir."
Yeah,
and that's how I feel about The Thief. Is that like with The Thief, you have. With noir, I should say, you have certain elements, certain like checklists that you should hit in order for it to kind of like fit the genre, like a femme fatale. Unless you're gonna count some lady staring at him awkwardly in a hallway.
That was by the way, was also like an element of Lynch, right? Like I feel like Lynch used some shit in this movie.
Yeah. I feel like he's definitely seen this movie.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So, like, aside from that aspect, I wouldn't say that there was a femme fatale because she doesn't call us a downfall or anything like that. And there's usually a murder in these movies, and the murder doesn't happen until like the very end of the movie. And there were also just like one of the reasons why I feel like the whole no dialogue, it just like my thoughts on it is this is a creative choice. It is a bold creative choice, and sometimes bold creative choices work and sometimes they don't work, and in this case it works but just barely. And I mean, there's like a fine line there, and it's like sitting on the line between working and not working. And I feel like you don't have to have a lot of dialogue to make a good movie, but like you guys were saying, just a little bit here and there would have like improved this story dramatically. Like there are parts where it's just where it just kind of it gets hammy almost. Like there's this scene where he's sitting in the car and he's looking around his country, and he comes to the realization that he's, betraying his country and all that other stuff. And he just makes these like overly dramatic faces, and I'm like, "Oh, I'm betraying my country!" Oh, and
yeah,
that's I could like. Here's the thing: if I can hear my dad making fun of the movie in the back of my head, I know that there's a problem here, and that's what I heard. I heard my father's voice saying exactly that.
Yeah, I think that, what you were saying about, that murder that takes place at the end, which, by the way, him and the agent fucking scale what I think it's like the very top of the Empire State Building, basically.
It's 102 floors.
102 floors, right? And the murder happens, like the guy accidentally falls down, and then he's left so traumatized that he ends up turning himself in. I think a lot of that plot lends itself to being a noir just because, traditionally speaking, there is no inherent good or evil when it comes to the protagonist in a noir. And I think that that character dealing with this internal conflict the entire time, but then eventually setting his sights straight, was like pretty much kind of what most noirs have as their end message. Because like there's rarely a film noir that ends happy. Like it's usually just like satisfactory, right? Like like in The Big Sleep, for example, which we reviewed, it's like the ending is it's good because Lauren Bacall's character is like freed from the clutches of that gambling dude, but like her sister was the one who fucking murdered the guy from the beginning, and it's like now she's got to go into a psych ward. So like there's always like clouds obscuring any brightness going on. So
that's another reason why Strangers on a Train is not a noir. It has a happy ending, and fuck that shit.
Oh my god. But yeah, I think yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I didn't look it up, but I'm curious how this movie was received when it came out, because it came out at like pretty much the beginnings of the Cold War, and the whole movie is about like a physicist who's betraying his country, presumably to the Soviet Union, but it doesn't necessarily say that. But like for a protagonist, there's not a whole lot to like about him. Like, and since you don't have dialogue, there's not like, oh well, he's like witty and smart, so like you like him. But so I'm curious as to how this movie was received when it came out.
Right. Yeah, that's actually interesting, the whole Cold War thing. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, it was I'm with Blake on this one. It was very clearly Russia, because who else would you really have been looking to betray your country to in the 50s? But yeah, there's very little room for character development and growth, because the entire movie are shots of this, you know, secret file being the camera, whatever, being passed around, and you know, it goes from here to there to there to there to there to there, and like there's very little focus and room for growth in an hour and 20 minutes for this guy without any kind of spoken dialogue. And that's why it's very much like, it's one of those artsy films, right? It's a very like creative artsy film that tries to do something, and again, it's successful in, you know, what it does, but there are ways that this movie, the story, could have been drastically improved upon, which is I said to Sam when after I watched it, I was like, I'm mad. I'm mad because this is a great story and it's told so poorly, in my opinion.
Yeah. Also, another thing is there very clearly was this whole setup of what seemed like a subplot of this melodrama going on with him. I wish they explored a little more of that struggle, but again, you know, an hour 20 minutes, I guess you can only do so much with it. But
yeah, and it's just so hard to without dialogue too, because like what we know about him basically is that he's a physicist who is, you know, sending this secret information off to like a foreign power, and he's conflicted about it, but that's pretty much it. Like for the whole movie, we don't get why is he conflicted about it, what about him is like fueling him to change his mind all of a sudden or whatever. And without the dialogue, we just don't get any of that.
Yeah.
So, like exactly. Like what's his motive? What's his drive? Why is he betraying his country? What's his backstory? Like, why does he in the end decide to not betray his country? Like, there's so much that we don't know about him, and it's just so surface level.
And you know what? We need a prequel. Any big directors listening, get the prequel going.
I want a prequel and I want a remake, because again, I think it's a fantastic story and I think it could be told so much better than the way it was.
Well, I almost feel like, has there maybe been like a spiritual adaptation of this? I don't know. Maybe.
I also feel like this is one of those things that people wouldn't want to touch, because, like, you know, this is like, no matter what you do, people are going to be upset. Oh, you remade this movie. Oh, you put talking in it. You ruined it. You destroyed it. You completely like defeated the whole point. And I would just, to those people, I would humbly and politely say, fuck you.
Well, also, literally, most of Hollywood has been remakes or revisits or reboots or reimaginings.
Yes, and I understand that it's tired, but like in this case, in this one specific case, I think it would be worth it. I think it would be worth it because, again, potential for a really great story. There are great moments in this movie. The scene where he's in Dr. Hans's office and he's hiding behind the chair. Like, that's great. There's so much tension in that scene alone. Yeah. You don't need dialogue there. That's one of those scenes where everything you need to know is on the sweat on his brow. And then there are other times where it's just for more context, there's a character in this movie who has glasses, right? Like he's like this little short guy who's like in a bunch of different shots, and he's always like watching our main character guy, right? I, to this day, do not know whose side is he on? Is he an FBI agent? Is he with the Soviets? Is he like what is the deal with the phone ringing over and over again? It's maddening, and I don't understand why.
Yeah, it's
Answer the fucking phone.
Yeah, it's like, I guess, like, through context clues, sometimes you pick up on that, but yeah, again, there needs to kind of be exposition to explain that. I think you can leave a lot up to the viewer, but only if you leave enough of a breadcrumb trail.
Yeah. Well, that's what's interesting is it's a movie without dialogue, but it's also a movie without exposition.
Right.
Is what makes it so difficult to enjoy and follow.
Yeah.
In other words, it's
have exposition with no dialogue.
So what you're saying is that this movie has no explanation, so we have no idea what's going on, and we don't know how to watch it to enjoy it. So if you were to say that this movie was like a video game, it would be like a video game where it doesn't tell you how to play it, and it doesn't really give you any kind of exposition or anything going on. So, needless to say...
Oh, shut the fuck up. I know where you're going with this.
This movie is the Dark Souls of film noir.
You're obnoxious. God fucking damn it.
That's what's gonna happen. No, there's not gonna be a remake. There's gonna be a FromSoft game
of the Thief. No, you know what though? Do a Thief. I know there's the game series Thief, but do like this movie idea as a game. I could see. Yeah, I could see it.
I could see that. That'd be great.
Yeah, there's a
lot more of a noir than LA Noir anyway.
Yeah. Which, by the way, we still gotta stream that.
We still need to finish that. Yeah.
But yeah, so that's The Thief. I think we all are pretty much on the same page with it. Like, I didn't completely despise it. I think that they did a lot of interesting things. I think Ray Milland did sell the performance, and that was basically the biggest reason I was entertained, because most other actors probably could not pull that role off. But I know Milland is always kind of like teetered on that line of heroic and cynical in his roles, so he was a good choice for it. But yeah, other than that, left some things to be desired. But no, I wouldn't say like I hated it. It was solid.
I don't know if I wouldn't even know if I would say I hated it. I would just say that the reason why I feel strongly about it as I do is because it's a very interesting premise that, due to the artistic choices that the director took, doesn't work as well for me as I feel like it could have otherwise. But silent film, like, let's talk about silent films real quick for a second. Like Charlie Chaplin silent films, yes, they're funny, but like those movies have no dialogue in them at all. You just hear some guy going ham on a piano for 2.5 hours, and you occasionally get a black screen with text with dialogue. Yeah. Those movies work. I have watched many Chaplin movies, and I think that they are phenomenal, and they work because there's the way that they do what they do feels cohesive, whereas this, it just doesn't. So I'm not saying that this movie doesn't work because there's no dialogue. There are other aspects to it as well that caused it to stumble, whereas it could have flown.
Yes. No, that's a good way to put it. I would agree with that. But Ray Milland, I know you're not listening because you're dead, but good job. Decent job, buddy.
F's in the chat.
F's in the chat. So now I'd like to move on to my choice, which was Notorious. Now,
this was the movie, Sam, just to refresh my memory, because I've watched a handful of movies. This is that one where he falls in love with this lady, and she ends up being like a double agent of sorts, right?
Well, yeah. So we'll explain that a little better. But this movie has been on my list for a very long time because it is no secret I'm a big Hitchcock fan. But the man has a huge filmography, so there's still a lot I haven't seen. But I bought this on Criterion. Oh God, I don't even remember. Like at least a year ago. And we finally cracked it open like a couple weeks ago. And I'm just so upset it took me this long to do it, because you have Hitchcock, Cary Grant, Ingrid Bergman. Like, that is, at that time in Hollywood, that is the best fucking triple threat ever, because like they were all at the top of their game at that point. And what's interesting is well, a lot, but most notably that Cary Grant and Ingrid Bergman in this movie usually play the opposite personas. Like Cary Grant in this movie, he plays an FBI agent who goes to I believe his name is Devlin, who goes to Ingrid Bergman's house, who plays her name is Alicia, I believe, and basically blackmails her because her father was like a Nazi co-conspirator, and blackmails her to bring down even more Nazis. And but what's interesting is like Cary Grant was usually the handsome screwball character in Hollywood at this time, and Ingrid Bergman was the straight-laced love interest. In this film, they kind of reverse roles, and they're both like much more cynical than they usually are, which of course, like for a noir or spy thriller, whatever you want to call it, it works perfectly. And it's interesting that they're so gifted as actors that they can step out of their comfort zone, and it's still one of their best roles. Like I didn't think for a second that they didn't not put every ounce of their prowess into this. And of course you have Hitchcock, who can make any fucking thing look interesting, right? I love the way he frames his shots, and he can make anything like the key, like that big key scene. Well, we'll get into that. Like even that was interesting. Like, so I just there are a lot of thrills in this one. There are a lot of thrills in this one. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, no, I was just gonna kind of get into the synopsis a little, but yeah. So like I said, Grant plays this federal agent, ends up blackmailing Bergman's character into becoming a spy for this Nazi group, and also Claude Rains is in this. Who
I was gonna say, I gotta give a shout out to my Universal Monsters.
Yeah, you gotta give a shout out to the Invisible Man, who always does a good job. Yeah.
You know what's funny? That ties into when we talked about The Big Sleep. Claude Rains also is super short, and he had to like stand on a box to film a lot of the scenes.
Yeah, in this movie. Yeah, but Claude plays Sebastian. So as Alicia is getting dragged further into this mess, her and Devlin are falling for each other, but they're playing this game of cat and mouse, which of course. And the biggest conflict then becomes this guy Sebastian, played by Claude Rains, is also like part of that Nazi group, and apparently him and Alicia have met before or had some sort of affair, and now in order to get the recon that she needs for the FBI, she's basically forced to be with this man. And that's another interesting point I wanted to bring up about this film, is like it's so it's so fucked up. Like if you think about it, this movie's really morbid, right? Because this woman is blackmailed by the FBI, and she's forced to throw herself at a Nazi who eventually marries him and has sex with him and risks her life every day for a country that already labels her as a traitor, and for a man who's playing cat and mouse with her emotions. So, like, this is a really fucked up story.
It is a really fucked up story.
Yeah. If you really stop to think about it. And then, like, as the plot progresses and Sebastian is bringing her closer into his pocket, and Devlin is still shying away and trying to reserve his emotions. Just the whole man, it's like a scary situation. It's like you're stuck in this Nazi's house, and then
it's like a damned if you do, damned if you don't sort of thing. A very catch-22 situation.
Yeah, and then there's that party Sebastian wants to throw to basically show off Alicia, And another thing that will become prevalent is Sebastian is a very big mama's boy. So his mother is. It's funny because Sebastian's already an old person, but then his mother is like a co-conspirator in everything. Like she's like this old school German woman who just is like fuck all to the world, and always like. And it's so funny, the whole mama boy dynamic. He like tries to fight her on Alicia, but then like there's all this betrayal. So Sebastian decides to throw this party, and this is where the movie gets very tense, because prior to like right before this happens, Alicia manages to steal a key from the key ring off of Sebastian, which is one of the most tense moments in the movie, because she's like trying to hide it in her hand, and she hugs him and is hiding it behind the back, and that's the famous shot that's seen on the Criterion cover, which do I have in my room? Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'll post a picture. But yeah, so
Sam, edit in a picture.
Yeah, but like right there, it's like you already had such good tension, and then the mission becomes they gotta find out what's in that wine cellar, and Devlin agrees to come by the party. And there's already a tension between him and Sebastian, because earlier they were at the horse track, and like throughout the movie, Devlin and Alicia meet up in public so he can get the recon that she gave, and it became increasingly apparent that Sebastian was just literally just like at the game, he has like these binoculars, he's staring at them. So he comes over and he knows that they have some sort of relationship, but they don't know, what it is, but he just figures like a love interest. And so then the fun becomes him going to this party, and it's like he's already a jealous fuck, and now he has to like sneak to this wine cellar to see what's going on. And what's interesting is when they get into the wine cellar, I didn't realize what the fuck was supposed to be in the bottle that they break. It it seemed like sand or something, and then it turns out to be uranium. And but they think they clean up very well, but then Sebastian like comes down, and the whole time this is happening, the party's slowly running out of champagne, so they constantly cut the camera to the fucking to the little ice bucket. And even that's tense, right? Like it's silly the way they do it, but it's like, oh my god, hurry the fuck up. I thought you were bringing a special guest on the show.
That's what happened.
Oh, he's right there. Oh, hell yeah.
That's what happens when you invite Orson Welles to a party. He drinks all of your champagne and then tries to advertise it poorly.
Oh, fuck.
Oh, what do we got?
Is that the stare?
Yeah, there he is.
Oh, is that a doxy?
Yeah.
My mom and dad have a doxy.
Here we go. We got another one.
Yeah,
Family
boy.
Oh, here he is. Okay.
It's the do
There
and Stan.
They're gonna start.
They're the real stars of the show. Watch me make this audio only.
Your brown, long-haired dachshund actually looks a lot like my mom and dad's dog's father.
Oh, really?
He was a brown. He looked just like that, brown and long hair.
I love that.
We love
real star of the show, really.
Yeah. Real host.
Yeah.
Yeah. What the fuck is Film Noir? Let's talk about dogs for the rest of the show.
Yeah, I'm honestly down. So yeah, Devlin accidentally breaks that bottle. He takes a sample of the uranium, and Sebastian is coming down to the cellar as well. And in order to not bring, which is funny because it's like in order to not bring attention to the fact that they're on this espionage mission, he actually brings attention to them by kissing her. So that way it's more like he passes it more off of like an affair thing rather than, hey, I'm an FBI agent, right? Like that.
I wonder, is this movie where that like trope started? Because I feel like a lot of movies use that, like the kissing as a distraction thing.
I don't know.
I don't know if this is where it comes from, but I feel like
it's
now it's
possible.
that a lot in movies.
Oh, it's possible. I don't know. But yeah, obviously, so Sebastian is a little salty, and then he figures out that the key was missing, and he leaves the key ring on his desk, and it magically appears the next morning, and he's like, okay, Alicia's probably a fucking spy. So now there's so many layers of tension in this movie. So now the biggest problem Sebastian faces is he has that group of Nazi immigrants that he confers with. So if they find out that a spy is in their midst, Sebastian's getting killed. And they kind of really cement that thought in your head earlier on, because there was a guy who, I mean, I don't even think he did anything that wrong, and he got whacked by them. And now it's like, you have a spy amongst you. You're fucked, dude. So Sebastian confides in his mother, of course, fucking mama's boy. And she proposes that Alicia die slowly. How, you ask? Well, good old-fashioned poison, which you could probably have picked up anywhere on the streets in 1946. I mean, they were selling heroin over the counter. So, and this is when I was saying earlier how truly terrifying this film is, like, this is fucked. They're poisoning her, and you're seeing it all unravel. It's not like, I know murder is bad enough, right? But usually in a movie in the 40s or 50s, it's like, it's a quick thing, and they don't really show much. But they're showing her getting poisoned, right? Like, she's bedridden, and it's like, this is going on for like at least a week. I love her realizing it was in the coffee, right? There's that great shot where she takes the sip, and then she looks around the room. She's like, wait a minute, they fucking know. And she's like, oh, I have to get up. Now, what's interesting is when she starts to get blurry and the camera shakes, I right before that happened, I thought she was feigning illness to get away from them. So they kind of misdirect you with that, because now she knows that they know. So she gets up, but then when she's leaving the room, she starts to actually get sick. And that part legitimately scared me. I'm like, oh, what are they going to do to her? Like, this is, I'm glad this movie wasn't made in the 2010s and directed by Eli Roth, because that would be really problematic. But anyway, so after all this time, Devlin becomes worried because they meet very frequently, and he's thinking, well, where the hell is she? So he goes to his commissioner, and he's like, oh, it's probably nothing. But obviously, like, she's with this Nazi conspirator. Something is wrong. So he decides to go to Sebastian's place, and he finds her bedridden. And this is when finally it is admitted that he loves her, and there's no more of that barrier, that woe is me, apathetic atmosphere. And that is basically enough drive and motivation to get her the fuck out of there. Now comes my favorite part of the entire movie. So all the Nazi co-conspirators are in a little room below where they meet, and at the top of the staircase is Devlin, Alicia, Sebastian, and the mother. And while all this is happening, Devlin is, lowly talking to Sebastian like, I wouldn't make any funny moves if I were you, otherwise they're going to ask some questions, and all the Nazis come out of that room, and they're just staring at what's going on, right? Because look at how bad this looks. Sebastian's not helping his sick wife, and like, what's worse is, who is this man? So then eventually, after a lot of tension, he goes along with it. He's like, yes, yeah, let's get her to the hospital. And they do the slow walk down the stairs. And they eventually exit, and just, they both get thrown in the taxi, and they leave Sebastian out. He's like, you got to deal with them now. Like, you're fucked, dude. Because now at this point, they're gonna know what's going on. And I love, that's where they cut it, right? It's like now you have the ambiguity of what really happened. I mean, obviously they killed him, right? But I love that that's the way Hitchcock ended it.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was fucking phenomenal. Like, this is from start to finish, perfect casting, perfect direction. I think that as far as tension goes, Hitchcock, master of suspense. Like, there's a reason he's so good at it. And although, it's interesting, Blake, I wanted to ask you, did you see the Hitchcock cameo in this?
I had to look it up afterwards because
was it the cafe? Where was he?
It's during the party. He's like in the background. He like grabs a drink and like walks off screen. Because I thought the exact same thing. I was like, I didn't see him, and I know that he's in this somewhere.
Yeah, because Anthony and I were like, where is he?
Yeah, it's definitely one of the harder to catch cameos.
I'm sorry, I missed it. Where is Hitchcock?
It's during like the party scene. He's like he like grabs a drink and walks off camera real quick. It's a really short.
Yeah, that there was a lot going on in those party shots, so it's no wonder we missed them.
Yeah.
Yes, the jealousy, the tension. Calvin Klein. But anyway, yeah, Notorious.
I think
good movie.
Notorious, I think, was probably my favorite of the three. It's definitely one of the more memorable ones. It's I didn't even know that Hitchcock had made a noir before this movie, and seeing that he had done so is just excellent.
Yeah, well, Hitchcock had an entire career prior to moving to America. I mean, his British filmography alone, I think, is at least a decade. In which time, I believe that's when he did the 39 Steps, which is one of my favorites he's done with Robert Donat, but I'm not sure which era that was. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Point being, yes, Hitchcock slaps. He fucks. And he's hitting the gritty. He's hitting the gritty beyond the grave. That's
Where would you like rank this among Hitchcock movies? Because I know a lot of people consider this one of his best.
Oh man, yeah. I mean, it's that's like asking which cut of steak am I preferring. I mean, I would say for sure in his top 10. Top 5, my personal, probably like in the top 7. Probably in the top 7.
Well, it's interesting because I read also that Roger Ebert has had this on his top 10 greatest movies of all time, not even just Hitchcock. Like, so
yeah, I mean, it's fantastic. It hits all the notes it's trying to hit and more.
Yes.
So it's fucking. I'm still upset it took me so long to watch this, but I'm glad I did, because I'm definitely going to be rewatching this.
It's actually only, I think, the second Hitchcock movie I've seen. I want to say the only other one being Strangers on a Train, but and again, like when I say that I didn't know he made noir, I don't consider Strangers on a Train noir, so. That's what I meant by that. Like, it's like this was definitely a noir film. There was way too much going on in here for it to not going for it in that favor for me to say it wasn't. But it's a dark story. Like what you said earlier, Sam. It's really dark. Like it's like this poor woman, she goes through hell and back and nearly dies from poison.
Yeah.
For what? Like, what does she get out of it at the end?
Yeah, I mean, it's
rough,
and it's also that start, like that whole sub story of like, oh, love will prevail, but like the entire time Devlin is just playing games with her. And it's like, and I know for most of the movie, there's kind of like that. She amassed this reputation of being promiscuous, so that kind of kept him on his guard, but it was clear from, I mean, and this happens in like the beginning of the fucking movie, like when they're actually together and she's cooking him a whole chicken dinner and she literally all over him. Like in most noirs, you would question the motives of that person, you know, like I guess the femme fatale in that sense, but like she legit just wanted to be with him. And that might have been Hitchcock's greatest misdirection of all. Is him being like, nah, she was just in love with him. Like, there's no. But anyway, yeah, no, Notorious. Yeah, I think. Oh, it's so fucking good. I want to rewatch it now.
A funny, like fun fact I read about this that I wanted to mention. I didn't watch it, but apparently there's an episode of Star Wars Clone Wars that is like a direct adaptation of this movie.
That's interesting.
No shit.
That's
isn't that crazy?
No shit. That's wild.
And it's from season 2. I didn't watch it, but I thought it was really funny that Clone Wars did a Notorious episode.
That's great.
I gotta watch it after this.
Yeah,
I want to see it too. I want to see it too. That whole series is something that I'm told I really should watch, but I'm stubborn and I stand by that Tartakovsky's Clone Wars is the only one true Clone Wars. But I'm a snob. I really am a snob when it comes to that. So I need to just let it go and watch and watch it. But yeah, great movie, Sam. Great pick. I think this is one of the best picks you've had for Noirvember.
Yes. And your pick, which is a movie I have seen before, was Touch of Evil.
Yeah, and it was the first time I've seen it, and good lord, that movie.
Yeah,
good lord.
What's so fun about Touch of Evil is that it's very much it is a noir. It's actually, fun fact, like considered the last real film noir because it came out in 1958.
Yeah,
and everything after.
One.
Yeah, so everything after that was like not.
It's the finale.
Once you enter any era after that, everything is considered like neo noir. But but yeah, I mean, I think what made it fun is Orson Welles kept it very real and in a sense childish. But it's which I just. This is so random, but so he directs and stars in this, and I love like the fact that he could never do a movie. He hated his nose. Orson Welles famously hated his nose, so in a lot of his roles, he wore a prosthetic, and this movie has to be the funniest prosthetic nose job ever. Next to, well, the Chimes at Midnight one is fine. It looks more realistic with his face, but yeah, this one was fucking great. But I just want to say off the bat, Wells always manages to do these continuous shots that I love. So the intro of this movie is just going, like, the entire intro is just going around this, like, it's like basically they're on the border of the US and Mexico, and it's just one continuous shot. And I fucking love that. I think that's probably one of my favorite shots of any movie, like, or openings of any movie, because it's just like they're just showing you the nightlife. You don't know what's exactly gonna happen, and then surprise, car bomb goes off and fucking wipes out this guy and his stripper girlfriend, and we have Charlton Heston in this, who another fun fact, how Orson Welles hated his nose in movies. Charlton Heston refused to wear something about Charlton Heston I found interesting. I think he refused to like shave his head for wigs or something. Like, it was something with wigs he absolutely was against. But so basically you have prima donnas working together.
Yeah, I was gonna say a lot of insecure, annoying men.
Right. But you also have Janet Leigh in this, who I also believe was in. I'm trying to remember. I think she was in another. Wells movie, but she's been in everything. Like, she's in Psycho, but she had a pretty big presence in Hollywood. But basically, so this happens, and then Miguel Vargas, who is played by Heston, which, by the way, we should have played a drinking game for this movie every time Wells says Vargas, because it's the entire fucking movie, and he's on and he's on vacation. Vargas, and he's on vacation. He's on vacation with his wife Susie, and but he is a prosecutor, so he becomes interested in what's going on. But then we enter Wells, who plays Hank Quinlan, who has been with the police force for quite a while, but we see him and he's like already crotchety and disheveled, and you find out that he's been on and off the wagon with alcohol for a while. So, I mean, it already reeks suspect. Like, I don't know about you guys, and granted, I've seen this movie before, but like, as good as this movie was, it probably had one of the most predictable twists in a movie. Like, I knew from miles away that he was corrupt,
See, that's the thing that I have to disagree with you on. I
really
didn't see that. Yeah. Is like, I feel like, because the thing is at first I feel like, oh, he's a dirty cop. And then it's like, oh, wait, no, he's not a dirty cop. Oh, wait, he's a dirty cop. No, wait. So it's like, it for me, the movie did a good job of like making me flip flop. But when we're first introduced to him, I didn't get dirty cop vibes from him at all. I got washed up, has been cop, like more like he's at the end of his career and he's tired and he's drunk and he's a genius and he's fantastic at what he does, and he like almost like how Columbo plays an idiot and then at the very end bags the guy. Like he like just plays this fat, heavy breathing man who just is tired and doesn't seem to have it together. And then at the end, he put it all together and figure out who did the car bombing and stuff. Like, that's the vibe I was getting. I wasn't getting dirty cop vibes. It wasn't until like the twist where he plants the, like his partner there plants the evidence. And I'm like, oh, either he's a dirty cop or his partner is like a dirty cop. And like, even up until like towards the end of the movie, I did like until like, the last third of it, I still wasn't 100% sold that he was like the bad guy. But I don't know. That's just me. I should honestly, given that it's Orson Welles playing the character and he plays the villain in all of his fucking movies.
Yeah.
That I should have seen that coming, but I didn't. And yeah, so I didn't really find it to be all that predictable in this one. But that's just me.
I'm happy to hear that, and I'm gonna chalk this up to my bias in the fact that I've seen this movie and Wells just looked like he was dirty. But but yeah, no, I'm glad you felt that way.
Literally.
I'm glad you felt that way because there were definitely, I mean, I will still agree with the fact that there were times that, like you said, with the flip-flopping, because he does have that partner, Menzies, who to me always seemed more righteous. So I guess it was just more that I could smell Wells through my screen and figured that he was probably guilty. But but like, so there then becomes this line of questioning between Vargas and Quinlan. Like, Vargas basically accuses him of fabricating evidence, and also there's some things that the fact that like Quinlan would be short a lot of the time, especially when it came to questioning. So when Vargas was like trying to assert himself with Quinlan would like immediately refute it. And there was like that shot where I don't know where they are though. Like I guess like a junkyard, and he's like not even giving him any eye contact, and he's just like rapid fire, immediately answering his questions with like yes or no. But obviously like there's kind of like this socio culture overtone because like it is on the border of America and Mexico. So Quinlan's like, well, you know, Vargas is just in favor of Mexicans, and that becomes like another subplot, which is not like what I like about that is it's not shoved down your throat, but it kind of acts like as a catalyst for certain things. But like as this questioning goes back and forth, Quinlan relapses because he had been sober. You could have fooled me because I thought in the beginning he was just always shit-faced. But then he actually starts to get drunk, and he gets pressured by that guy Joe Grandi, who is related to one of Vargas's like prime suspects. And man, watching Orson Welles get drunk just never ceases to amaze me. And also, it's with these old movies, they drink and smoke every 2 fucking seconds. Like,
yeah, right.
Like, especially like in the Thief. Like, to just go back to the Thief, when he's like in the safe house, he's just chain smoking and chugging constantly.
Yeah, it's
and
always
like,
so funny in these movies.
I know all these movies. Like, there's literally not a scene that goes by where a person isn't simultaneously engaged in conversation and grabbing the biggest bottle of rye that they can find. It's so great. So yeah, there's a lot of back and forth, and Vargas and his new wife start to like become involved in the shit. You know, there's even that scene where the guy almost threw acid in Vargas's face, and he decides that he's gonna put his wife up in this motel so that no one like comes after her. And then there's that like really weird scene where the guy's like peeking in on her, and she breaks the light, which is a great shot because the lighting in this movie is phenomenal. By the way, like this is like prime noir lighting.
Yeah.
And like that scene especially where it becomes like completely dark, but then Vargas opens the door and there's a little bit of light that seeps through, and oh man, I love it. Like that's like, oh, that's such a good job. But there's a lot of you know, much like noir films, there's a lot of that internal conflict, and especially with Quinlan, because Quinlan is you know, as movie goes on, you find out that you know, he's basically a man who tried to play it straight for 30 years on the force, and it didn't get him anywhere. You know, he's upset that he never made something of himself. He doesn't have money to his name. And like that's basically the prime motivation behind him being corrupt. And there's kind of like that. It's all grounded in realism, which is something that Orson Welles is always proficient at. He always knows how to make you simultaneously like and despise a character, and you compound that with the fact that is what a noir does too. And it's a good home run there. Because then Quinlan starts questioning fucking everything. He's like, oh, Menzies might be betraying me and whatever. And there's like that entire last leg of the film where Vargas decides to put the wire on Menzies, and Menzies and Quinlan are having a conversation. And there's just like drunk rambling going on the whole time. But it's definitely an amazing monologue that he performs, but then he starts to hear an echo and he realizes he's being recorded, and then there's eventually a confession of it, and I will say that like the biggest point of tension is that final standoff, because I wasn't really sure who was dying in that scenario. Like part of me thought like Vargas was gonna die. I was like, I hope Quinlan doesn't get away from all this. because like he basically planted all the evidence, and
Yeah, it's very tense.
it's very
tense.
Like that part I for sure could not have predicted.
But like also the code's in place at that point, and I feel like that he's gonna get his comeuppance.
It's true. Yeah, I mean the only gray area I could maybe argue that with is like there was the whole anti-hero angle that they try to like push down your throat, but yeah, it's I am glad that it ended up being that way. But yeah, then there's that woman Tana who shows up, who is played by Marlene Dietrich, who was a big French star and singer, and which it is funny because like you don't really know what their relationship was supposed to be. I guess it was a character introduced to like bring humanity and desperation to Quinlan's character, because like way earlier in the movie when he walks into her shop and she's like, you could stand to lay off the candy bars and shit. I was like, you're fucking... That's great. But you could tell like there was a relationship there.
Yeah.
And it was probably like, it's just a reminder of Quinlan's sad legacy. And so, yeah.
I think one of my favorite scenes with her is towards the end. He's very clearly drunk, and he says to her, "Tell me my future." And she looks at him dead in the eyes and says, "You haven't got one." Yeah. And I'm like, oh, he's gonna fucking die. I knew. I was like, when she said that, I was like, oh, they're setting him up. They're setting him up for something good.
Yeah.
Oh God, I really did love this movie. I honestly think that this is my second favorite Orson Welles movie.
It's great.
I liked The Stranger like well enough, but my biggest lament about The Stranger was that Edward G. Robinson isn't in enough of the movie and doesn't interact with Orson Welles nearly enough throughout the movie.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
And I was under the impression that was Welles's only noir. I had heard of Touch of Evil. I didn't know that this was an Orson Welles movie. So
yes, sir.
When I found this out and you told me about this, I was like, the gif of the kid like with his credit card in hand and he's just like slamming it on the table over and over again. That was me with when I found out about this movie. So I wanted to I really wanted to watch this, and it was so much better than I thought than I had any idea it was going to be. It was such a fantastic movie.
Yeah, and I would actually say that I think as far as this list of 3 goes, Notorious was my favorite film. Touch of Evil is my favorite noir of the 3. I mean, just like I said, like the lighting, the tension, that scene where the guy, the Uncle Joe guy, is in the room alone with Quinley and Susie, and Susie's like tied to the bed, and Quinlan like ends up getting in the fight with him, and there's like the lights flickering from the sign outside, and the bongos are playing rapidly, and Orson Welles is sweating the most I've ever seen him sweat in his entire career.
And that's saying
like that scene.
Yeah,
that scene sold the whole film for me. Like the way that was shot was beautiful. So yeah, I would say it's probably my favorite noir of the 3. And also like I could rewatch this movie over and over. It's phenomenal. Good job, Wells. Good job.
Good job.
Sometimes you did good things.
Action, please, Wilson.
Yeah. This I think this Noirvember was quite satisfying. We all had some good choices.
Except you, Blake.
Dang.
Yeah.
Dang.
You can tell who picked their movie randomly. But that's how I like to go into it with something new, so I could talk about it brand new.
I mean,
don't get me wrong. I'm happy to have seen that movie because it was interesting. It was At the very least, I'll give it this. For what they were trying to do, it was a very interesting attempt.
Mm-hmm. You know what it is? It's like you watch it and it makes you think about how much better it could have been. You know, like you think about like what could have made it a really great movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't hate it or think it was unwatchable or anything. But yeah, there was like it left me wanting so much more.
Yeah.
Enough said. Well, yeah. Noirvember, 2022.
That was
baby.
fun. Yeah.
2022. A little late, but better late than never. I'm looking at you. Anyway, this is once again been the Silver Screen Fiends podcast, and I have been Sam.
I've been Blake.
I am and always will be Anthony. I don't know why you guys are talking like you have been.
Listen,
that's just my stage name. I just use it for the podcast.
I owe a lot of people money, but this has been the Silver Screen Fiends podcast, and we hope you've enjoyed. And if not, I'm sorry because we're keeping your money. Anyway, have a nice night, and we'll see y'all next Noirvember.